Hello there, my name's Phil Williams and I would like to welcome you to Audio Angling, the podcast site of fishing-films-and-facts.co.uk. For as far back as I can remember, Porbeagle sharks have been present on the Welsh sea angling scene. Cardigan Bay, for example, was famed for its shark fishing back in the 1970s and 80s, before slipping into almost terminal decline during the mid-1990s. The odd one still occasionally manages to steal a hook pollock out over the wrecks off the Limp Peninsula, but nobody, it seems, ever bothers fishing for them seriously anymore until you're round the southern point of Cardigan Bay and start creeping into the Bristol Channel towards Milford Haven. I fished Milford Haven back in 2002 for pollock, where there was much talk about the potential for the sharks, but nobody, it seemed, was making any real attempt at going out after them. But over recent years that situation has changed radically, the end result being not only a pathway to catching sharks again in Welsh waters, but also to some of the very best shark fishing in the entire UK, spearheaded by Andrew Allsop of Whitewater Charters, who is sat beside me here today to fill us in on some of the detail. Looking back to the 1960s and 70s, West Country sharking, mainly targeting blue sharks, was also a very big business, though probably more with the holidaymakers than real anglers, which, to keep interest levels high, required bodies to be brought ashore each day and hung up on the quay, presumably to encourage the next round of bookings. And while it might have been the lifeblood of those bookings, at the same time it was also the death knell of the fishing, which very sharply spiralled into decline in terms of both fish numbers and average size. So much so that when I visited Lou earlier this year to interview Martin Bray, whose shop took the boat bookings back then, as an angling port, the place was sadly all but finished. Why is it then, do you think, that Milford Haven is able to capitalise where Lou and the other West Country ports are currently failing?
I think in hindsight we're a little bit fortunate with what went wrong probably with Lou over the years there when the sharks were actually, and don't get me wrong, I actually had holidays and I used to enjoy going down with my father years and years ago when I was little, and the highlight with the holiday was to see these fish on the side of the quay, and when you were young you didn't realise the problems that it would cause, and now over the years we've actually seen what's happened there now with all these fish being killed when they were catching so many fish there. It's had an impact. I mean, it's not just, I suppose, with what they've done there with bringing the fish in. I suppose worldwide with the sharks being slaughtered in the way they are, I think now it's very important that with Milford Haven that we've seen the downfall of this, and now fish go back, and if we can go out fishing and we use the tackle that we use to make sure that the fish are in a better state to go back, I think it's going to put Milford in a better position to keep its fishing. That's the main thing.
Do you think then that the blue shark potential at Milford Haven is better than the West Country? Or is it the same potential shared between everybody, the quality of which is improving across the board?
Yeah, I think so. I think, there's no doubt that in Milford we do push a little bit more distance, so we're trying to get out a bit further southwest. I mean, a lot of people say that the Gulf Stream has moved and the fish have moved there. I don't believe that. I think, let's be fair. If you went back to Milford Haven in the 60s and 70s where, Lou was catching a large number of fish, there wasn't even a boat working out of Milford Haven, so you couldn't really gauge if that was true or not. We're hearing things now that this year is a good year for shark. I mean, I started fishing for shark 97 on a private boat, a small boat with my father, and we were catching lots of sharks back in 97 on a private boat. I think what's happened now, there is a lot more sharks, or you're hearing being caught, but what's happening, you've got a lot of these more catch reports on these internet sites. A lot more people now will put their catch reports on. Back in 97, unless it went in an angling mag, which takes months to come out, I think it's just more news gets out quicker now, and I think that's what it is. I don't think there's more and more sharks. I think there's more and more people doing it and a way how to catch sharks. That's the difference.
On top of which, they're now being targeted for tag and release, as opposed to what went on in the past.
Yeah, I mean, they're all catch and release. No shark is actually, well, not my boat. I'm strict, when they book my boat, even if it's a record-breaking fish, the fish got to go back. In Wales, they will accept a length and girth ratio to claim a Welsh record. I mean, it does open the door for cheating. You're not going to stop that. But then, the anglers are just, and the skippers just fooling themselves if they want to go down that road. But it's good for the fish. They go back, and let's be fair, no one eats sharks. They're not even good eating. So when people say you can eat them or any excuse for that, I think that's a load of rubbish. I mean, the sharks for donkey's years were thrown back by skippers years and years ago. It's only now that fish stocks are going down that they'll use something that they can get money for to try and get in. But I just think that just put the fish back and enjoy our sport, really.
So do you think then that there has been some measure of recovery from damage done in the past by way of a decrease in popularity, say in Cornwall, giving the numbers and average sizes a chance to improve? Or is that not a part of how you see it?
I've read a little bit of research, and I think what's happened at Milford, you think we got something special there, which I do in so many things think, yes, we have. But also, you've got to think in Cornwall, when sharking was in its heyday, ports like Falmouth, Looe, all little ports, Mavaghetti, Plymouth, there were so many sharking boats working. I think once it went in a decline, it was like everything fell apart, and sharking just fell to bits. And then I think the wreck fishing came on the scene as well. A lot more people decided to do it and they get more chance of catching fish than sitting there waiting for the odd shark to come by. So I think what's happened now, I think once it went in a decline, I think it was really difficult for it to come back. And now with what's been caught off West Wales and you're in other areas being caught, I think a lot more people now are starting to do more sharking off the South Coast. I think we'll see more and more sharks being caught over the next few years from the old ports. Whether they're going to be in the same numbers, I can't really speak for myself for that. I don't know. All I can tell you is that we do operate a lot further offshore. So if the other boats started pushing distance, I honestly feel that they would catch a lot more sharks.
We've been talking here primarily about blue sharks up to now. So sticking with the blues just for the moment, what would be the typical size and numbers of these fish on your patch?
Numbers wise, I mean, if we took an average, when groups phone me, they all want to know are they going to desperately catch a shark, I don't guarantee nothing is fishing, but normally you would say between 6 to 8 sharks on average a trip, blue sharks. Average size between 60 to 80 pounds, I usually tell my groups. Milford does give you a high chance of getting a 100 pounder. We've been on some trips, we've had 5 fish well over 100 pound in weight. So it's nothing rare to see a fish knocking the 150 mark off Milford Haven. But some days then you could be struggling to get the 100 pounder. But normally if you said 60 to 80 pound is your average size fish.
And what about your biggest numerical one-day catch?
Actually, this season, we had 50 in one day, and that was actually amazing. I mean, for the skipper, it was just hard work. I don't know if I enjoyed that. It was more to do with numbers, really. There were just sharks absolutely everywhere. And we had, I think 14 fish went over 110 pound in weight, up to 167. So it was one of those days, everything from, as soon as we started fishing, the sharks just came instantly. As soon as you drop the bait over the side, you couldn't even feed it out. There was another shark on the end of a rod. So, and it was like that for the trip.
But for the bigger sharks, are there specific areas or approaches that you can rely on to produce these fish? Have you noticed any pattern or predictability to them? Or do they just show up on a fairly regular but indiscriminate basis?
The back end of the year is usually a good time for big fish. I think this year our biggest blue shark has been about the 170 mark, 167. Now, we haven't had anything. Last year we'd had quite a few 170s, 180s, and then we had a British record fish that we can't claim because the fish had to go back. But that was a 222 pound fish. But back in 2005 we had a 214 pound fish. We've had 5 fish now over 200 pound in weight over the years since we've been doing it. This year I've noticed that we haven't had such big fish, but plenty of the more packed fish around. But I got a trip now tomorrow, so I'm hoping we might see something a little bit bigger tomorrow as the water cools down. I tend to think the bigger fish, the October time is a good time for the bigger fish, So, but yeah, definitely this year we've had a little bit size drop in the really big fish, but a lot more in numbers this year, more pack fish.
When you say pack fish, I tend to think of the size range they would catch off say Looe in the 1980s and 90s, where fish of between 20 and 50 pounds became the expected norm. But your definition of packfish certainly sounds a lot more interesting.
Yeah, what we saw packfish, they're just in fact could be up to like the 70 pound mark. So yeah, you can get between sort of 40 to 70 pounds, which, I suppose when you're in other ports, that would be quite a reasonable sized fish. But because of the size of fish we've been used to over the years, especially with the blue sharks off Milford, they've been a little bit down on the size compared to the years gone by, but still good sport, and the tackle we use for these fish now, we're only using 20, 30 pound class rods, and you're catching fish over 200 pound on that, you're going to get a good bit of sport on a smaller fish, because over the years we've had anglers say, blue sharks don't fight. But the reason they say that, you ask them where they caught them from, and they say, Looe, for instance, they're catching them on 130 pound gear. Well, let's be fair, 130 pound gear, you could winch a 100 pounder in really, when it wouldn't fight. So, you put a blue shark on a 20, 30 class rod, and you get anything up to 80 pound in weight, it's going to give you a good run for your money, and especially with deep water, they can go down and they can go out across. So you can take 300 yards of line at a time on a 100 pounder. So you'll have a good bit of sport on stand-up gear. But it's like everything, you know, you put on the right tackle, they'll give you a good bit of sport.
And is the normal pattern holding true of all these bigger fish being females?
There's quite a few bits and pieces being written by, you know, a lot of people saying that they're going to see the first 300 pounds blue shark coming out of our shores. The only thing I'd be a little bit sceptical on that, I mean, this season now we've caught over 400 blue sharks, and we've been averaging nearly 300 sharks each season. We'd be doing it with blues. Just over 95% of the fish caught are all females. Now, the world record blue sharks, it's a bit of a strange scenario, are males. The ones that are called Montauk are all big males. They're not females. Now, females usually top off around 250 to 300 pounds. You very rarely get female bigger than that. It's the males which are the big fish, or the world record fish. Now, people are going to get a bit mixed up with what we got. Now, we don't get many male. My biggest male fish, and we've caught thousands of sharks now over the years we've been doing this, it's been 167 pound in weight. Now, the reason for this is that they think that nature's got its own way of segregating the species, which is the males can be very carnivorous. They'll eat the young. And on the American side of the Atlantic is when you get the big males, and we get more of the females. Now, I'll be very, very, I'm not saying it wouldn't happen, but I'd be very sceptical to think that we're going to get a female over 300 pound in weight. And that is really the bulk of our catch, which are a female fish. So it'll be interesting to see what the record will be. I think, and that's why the record has stood in Lou for so long, a 218 pound fish. And if you think of all the sharks that were caught out of Lou in its heyday, still, there was never a big male to actually compete with that size of fish, you know. So it'll be interesting to see over the years if we'll ever go over the 300 pound mark with a blue shark, because I honestly think that with the females, we're not going to see it, you know.
Sexual separation is one of the questions I had lined up for you later. I knew it took place, but for some reason in my mind, I had it the other way around. I'm not for one moment disputing what you say, because you're the man catching and seeing all these fish. Not for the first time in my life, I've probably got hold of the wrong end of the stick. But just to widen the debate up a little more, looking at the species globally now, what can you add in terms of distribution, maximum sizes or migration patterns coming from the bigger picture which might have any bearing on the UK?
I wouldn't sort of call myself an expert on their migration route. I've been a bit sceptical about tagging the blue sharks, to be honest, because I used to do a lot of tagging with sharks. I don't do it so much now. Everything's catch and release myself. The only thing I did find with tagging, and what we used to have back with tags, was all dead fish. All the data come back from dead fish we were caught from down towards the Azores, Spain and that direction. And they were all caught on long lines, all dead fish. I think there was one or two that came back from an angler thousands of miles away, maybe. Not sure if it's America where a sport angler actually caught it, but the majority of these fish were tagged in were caught by longliners. Now, the only thing I don't really like is the fact that if we were told that tagging these fish would stop commercial fishing for the sharks and everything, but because half these fish are caught by bycatch for other species anyway, and if they, you know, with all going on with the finning side of it, you start thinking that if the data gets in the wrong hands, who are we helping with this? You know, are we helping the angler, or are we helping the commercial fleet that's good at what they're doing anyway? And also, you're giving a migration route of your fish away anyway, because, you know, you've got a UK tag on there. They can look at that UK tag, UK, and the way, you know, with the finning, with sharks, and it's more and more, I mean, even with my website, I get these emails coming through, catching sharks, you know, pay you so many for your shark fins. It's massive money now, everything is money. So I don't really tag sharks anymore. I'm not being funny about it. It's just my view is that it's not for me. I'm helping the species, you know. Sometimes I think that where they go, what we don't know, they're safe and out the way, and no one else knows. And I think that when we start showing where they go, they got nowhere to hide or what they do. We just let more and more people fish for them, and then we're helping with their extinction. That's my view on it, you know.
Certainly something to think about. Now, we've touched on population numbers declining over the years around the West Country, but what, if any, trends have you noticed personally out from Milford Haven? More specifically, do both size and numbers appear to be on the increase, or is the numerical side to your fishing down to the amount of time you and your parties are putting in?
Yeah, I think definitely we haven't had a drop. I've been doing it now since 97, so actually I wasn't doing it as much as, you know, when I first had it, it was more for a pleasure. So I'm doing more and more trips. But if I went from 2003 onwards, I would say that the numbers have sort of stayed quite steady. We've averaged around 300 blue sharks a season. This year, there's no doubts we've caught more. But then, like I said to you earlier on, we're saying about pack, there's been a lot more of these, sort of what we call the packfish size. So, if anything, yeah, the numbers are holding steady, if not slightly up for this year, so which is a good sign for us. So, I could see we're not having any problems that Lou's had over the years. But then, I've been speaking to one or two skippers this year, and they've said they've had one of their best seasons for a long time. So, in general, I think the UK shark fishing for blue sharks is generally up this season, without a shadow of a doubt.
A follow-on question from that then is, have blue sharks in your operating area always been as abundant as they are today, perhaps without the fact being fully appreciated, or might it be a factor then extending the range slightly northwards in response to rising sea temperatures?
If I was chartering back in 97 and I could have done my own, stats, I mean, for what I've done, I was probably quite green on the gills, I suppose, for the years doing it. But I honestly believe that Milford's always had a big number of sharks. We're pushing 20 miles plus offshore. Some of the old-time skippers I knew, they were only doing within the 10-mile range, So maybe when you had so many sharks in an area, that would overspill into inshore fishing. And because Milford, you're pushing, I suppose back in the 60s, maybe Milford, you could catch them, if there were that many sharks, we don't realise that they were within 8 miles of the coastline. But definitely you need to get over the 15-mile mark to get a good chance of catching a few sharks. But as we're speaking now, they're definitely not in a decline on my numbers that I've caught over the last 14 years. If anything, they've been holding quite steady, which is good.
When we were chatting earlier, you mentioned the fact that Milford used to be a whaling port because of its proximity to the western approaches to the English Channel. That being the case, why do you think then that it hasn't blossomed as an angling venue to the same extent that some of the West Country ports either have or did?
Yeah, well, with Milford, if you drew an arc round of a 55-mile arc, you could actually fish 3 different countries, which is Lundy, North Cornwall way, and then you had Ireland, and then you got Wales. So the strike range of Milford, it's amazing, really. So you can fish the 3 different countries. If you've got groups of anglers on, they could actually have a choice if they want to go wreck fishing off Ireland, or they go wreck fishing on the English coast, or wreck fishing off of Wales. I mean, when we're sharking, we're just trying to head towards what the whaling, as you just seen there, Milford's a whaling port. And it's a gateway straight out to the Atlantic. And there's still big trawlers coming there now, which come in off the Atlantic, and they come in, especially some of the Spanish trawlers there, will move in and got their Arctic little lorries because they're coming straight in from a direct route. So, yeah, Milford, I think the position of Milford is just ideal for what you need for that type, especially shark fishing, which is to get out into the open water. And deep water as well. You've got very deep water, which blue sharks really do like. This goes out into 400 foot of water. You go out to the Celtic deeps. Nice drop-offs there, which all big game fish do like these drop-off marks, and again, you're pushing towards the big branches of the Gulf Stream that actually break off, that come in southwest. So yeah, I just think when you look at it on a chart and put a chart in front of you and you look at the position of Milford Haven, it's just an ideal place for a sharker's dream, really.
What then, if any, are the disadvantages which most ports seem to have in one guise or another?
Weather. As you can imagine, the prevailing winds, so westerly winds that come in. There's no cover, comes in off the Atlantic. We lose a lot of trips, I mean, this year alone, I'm down to under 40% of my trips, which is a nightmare for us to work to earn a living. I mean, my sole income is a charter skipper. And for me, it is hard graft, and the cost of diesel today, you've got to be fully booked. For any young skipper to start on Milford now, it's going to be very, very difficult. Not unless you've got a second job and you can use the boat. You've got 2 jobs and you're fortunate enough to do that. But to actually start today and work Milford Haven, I think it's going to be a very hard area to work.
My experience of fishing for blue sharks is one of long, continuous drifts with lots of rubby-dubby out over the 40-fathom line, setting out a series of baits at different depths down to around 60 feet, starting shallowest closest to the boat and deepest further away. What's your approach to fishing for the blues?
Yeah, I mean, same thing really. I mean, we basically set up our chum trail. We all got out different mixes of chum, but basically, yeah, it's a long drift. We set it up. I fish probably a very deep bait, one rod, which is very, very deep, which is probably a bit extreme to a lot of the shark areas. We even fish a bait which is only 200 foot. We try and get it down there with heavy leads on there, which we do really well on at times. It's a rod that I see to some of my parties that you fish and forget. You might not get a run on it for ages, but then all of a sudden then you can get something we've had some big fish on it, especially this time of the year now when you're trying to get a bait down we got to run a joey mackerel, and we put a bait down into these, into the joey shoals. And it's worked pretty well for big blue sharks, get porbeagles as well, and different things. So, but basically, yeah, like you said, it's just it's a continuous drift. It's not particularly with over any reef or anything. It's just the hard work that a skipper's got to put into the day to bring the sharks to the boat. And I try and fish no more than 4 rods. The reason being is that you can space the rods nicely, and if you get a run, you can actually keep the other rods in the water, rather bring the other rods in all the time, which, as you probably know, takes quite a long time to set up. And on lots of occasions, you can have 2 or 3 fish on. And if you work it right, because you're spaced out nicely, you can actually work it quite well with having multiple fish hookups. The day we had the 50, continuously we're having 3 fish on at the same time. You just got to have the anglers aware that they got to be dragged around the boat in different direction quickly at times and ducking the lines. But, as long as they work as a team and everyone's singing off the same hymn sheet, it can be done. And it's quite exciting, seeing your friend hooked up on the other side of the boat getting dragged one way and there's another lad going the opposite way, and it works really well. But the float-wise, we used to use balloons. We tend to stay away. We get problems with foamers. I don't know if you see, they can drive you potty at times, the seagulls. You put when we used to use the balloons originally, you set your traces out, takes you 25 minutes to get out, and then the foamer pops the furthest one out, and then as you bring that rod in, it tangles all the other gear. So what we've done, we come around, we use the actual little plastic pop bottles, which we find is ideal. The birds can peck them out as much as they like, and it works pretty well, and they're as good as anything. Some people use toilet floats. The only problem with those things is they'll crush under pressure, because often you're fishing 300 plus of water, and if a shark takes it down on a run, it'll get crushed. Pop bottles are probably the best of the lot, to be honest. Traces, we use sort of 350 pounds, 49 strand wire. We got a sort of clip on there, so because all our fish are catch and release. As soon as the fish comes in, there's a 6-foot biting trace that we unhook, and we can unclip, get the other trace out of the way, so they always tend to want to wrap themselves up on the wire, and we can get that out of the way pretty quick, so it's a bit like a dog leash, and then you can just control the fish as well on the deck with it. The hooks, we use no more than a 10-0 zinc plated hook that if it needs to be cut off will perish within a week. We know they don't last long, because even in my rig wallets, when I've used them for the first week, they're in quite a bad way, and you're forever renewing your hooks. Rubber dubby, basically your bran, your mackerel, and then whatever mixture the skipper really feels that he's got his own little recipe. I think all skippers got their own ideas what they want to put in there, and I got my own and I use it, and I'm quite happy with it. So it's more or less the same thing as you probably find off Lou. The only difference with our setup probably on our trace is that we use a little bit more lead, because we've probably got the second biggest organic colony in Northern Europe of Milford. In the early days, they were hitting the floats and swallowing hooks, which is a horrible thing, because one, they're quite a, not say a dangerous bird, they got a phenomenal beak on them. And secondly, is you don't want to see these things hooked up. So what we found by putting lead on there, when they went down and grabbed the mackerel on the trace, they drop it. They knew something wasn't right with it, and they'd actually drop it. And it was quite funny, because they'd come up on the surface and they'd put their head in and have a look at it, thinking, what the heck's gone on there, And it seems to work. We've never hooked now and gannet up since we've used the barrel leads on. It also helps because we've got quite a strong tide off Milford Haven with keeping the baits down, because it's no good just putting a mackerel over the side and feeding it out. Like you see some of the anglers saying, oh no, I haven't got a lead on my trace. And then if they're sending a deep bait down, you explain to them, they're actually not down deep. Your line is just bowing back up to the surface as it moves across. But the ones that listen will catch, and the others which are not fishing in it where they should be fishing. So that's the only difference. I suppose we use probably a little bit more lead than other ports probably.
Have you not had a go at fishing with circle hooks yet?
We do use circles, yeah. The only problem I find with circles, they go in the corner of the jaw, but when we're trying to get them out quick, to pop them out, it can be quite awkward if they go into the bone. That's the only thing I find. With a longer shank hook, I can actually bend them round on my feet, because we crush the barbs in a bit as well. We can pop them out pretty quick. Especially with blue sharks, it's easier for me, I think, to remove a standard long shank hook than I can off a circle. But yeah, circles definitely for hooking the corner of the jaw, there's no doubt they work a treat.
One trend I've noticed with blue sharks in particular came to light recently when I was fishing for them off the Isles of Scilly. When I first went there in the early 1980s, we'd sometimes take along the odd fee-paying twitcher, keen to see open oceanic birds feeding up the rubby-dubby slick right back to the source at the boat. But last time I was there, that had turned full circle. It was the bird watchers who were booking the boats and taking along masses of rubby-dubby, with the odd fee-paying sharker like me jumping in with them to put a bait down in their slick. Some of them were having near orgasms as birds like leeches, petrels and fork-tailed skuas were coming right up to the boat. Not so much here, as your business has already taken off, but for others, a potential way of supplementing the shark fishing business. But you, on the other hand, have some very good porbeagles to fall back on as your added bonus. In most areas, with the occasional exceptions such as the odd Mako back in the 1970s and possibly a thresher shark here and there, when boats go out fishing for blues, that's pretty much what they get. Are you finding this to be the case on your patch too, or are there areas where you might expect porbeagles and blues to mix?
Over the years I've been doing it now, we've got particular areas that I like to fish. It's like tomorrow night I got a trip and I'll be heading to a particular area where I know I'll have a good chance of catching a porbeagle. We've actually boated 72 this season, and considering we've only run sort of 38% of our trip, that's quite a high average for seeing them, because we're not actually inshore where you'd expect to catch porbeagles. The porbeagles we're targeting now chasing the shoalfish, garfish, the mackerel shoal. So Milford's got that nice nick in there where you've got a good chance of having a porbeagle at the same time. I mean, we've had days, the best mixed day we've had is 11 blue sharks and 9 porbeagles on the same trip for 4 anglers. And this season, we've had days of 7 of each. So when we do get porbeagles, we do usually get 1 or 2. You sometimes get the odd one, which is on their own, but normally we get, I would say, 3 or 4 porbeagles when we do get them, and then you get a lot of blues. So it's nice to see the 2 species on the same ground, really.
On the subject of other sharks, before we open up the porbeagle debate properly, is there anything else we should know in terms of other species such as Makos or thresher sharks?
Yeah, I think with the Mako shark, Lou has got some, amazing captures. I think as a port, it's probably some of them, the Mako sharks caught over the years there. I think it was Lou and Falmouth, I can't remember the skipper's name now, Vinicum, innit?
Yeah, Frank Vinicum.
Frank, and his other brother, wasn't he? Robin, yeah. I mean, those 2 skippers stand out a mile from any other skippers, really, for catching Makos. But for us, I think Milford is still in its, infancy, really, compared to the records they've caught off Lou. And also, we don't know what are the numbers of Makos now today and how many actually come into our waters, because you don't even hear of them being caught in gill nets at the moment, so.
The last Mako recorded on rod and line off Falmouth was, I believe, taken by David Turner aboard Robin Vinicum's boat back in 1971.
That's amazing, isn't it? I heard a rumour one was caught off Lou on a small one, but then you said, I don't know what the truth is. Someone said that there was a small one caught off Lou. But thresher sharks, we've actually seen threshers. Our biggest problem with threshers is that we're usually on bassing trips and they're closer into the shore. Where we tend to be fishing, we don't usually see the threshers. Often when we've been on bass trips, I think about 3 years, a big one came out alongside the boat. It must have been 300 plus. It's a very, very big fish. Again, that was only probably within a mile of the shore. Some of the bassing boys I speak to, they've often seen threshers. A better area would probably be just inside from Lundy to Wales, which would be on more of the bass banks there. And there've been 1 or 2 being caught in a net down towards Buryport, I think. But where we're actually fishing, we're more targeting the blue. With an outside chance, I think if we're going to see a Mako, I mean, when I look at Mako reports, it's always abroad. You look at the Montauk, places like that where you can get a little bit of information on it and see some of these amazing photos with them jumping. But they're getting them on the blue shark ground. So, in a way, I'm not saying you wouldn't get a Mako. The only thing we'd probably have a biggest problem with a Mako is the gear that we're probably using. That's the only drawback, because we're taking anglers out. Some of them are keen shark anglers, and some of them are the first time doing it. And you can probably guarantee the day you hook something really special, it's going to be when you've got an angler who's never hooked anything that big before on the end of a rod on a size 30 class reel, So you've got to have a lot of luck, I think. Once you start going over the 300-pound mark of fish, I think sometimes you've got to be a bit lucky that the right angler's on the rod as well, with the lighter gear you're going to be using. The only thing in our favour today, the boats are a lot faster, so if you have to use the boat, you can claw a bit of line back, with the boats being a bit quicker than they were years and years ago. But I just cross our fingers that we might be fortunate enough to even see a Mako, never mind catching one at the moment, I think.
I actually did an interview similar to this with Robin's brother Frank Vinicum down at Falmouth earlier this year. He's now 86 and still commercial fishing for mackerel. An absolutely amazing fella. Now in part, he puts the decline in Mako catches down to less boats blue sharking out of ports like Looe, Mavagissey and Falmouth. In its heyday, blue shark fishing put an enormous amount of rubby-dubby into the water all summer long, which Frank thinks was in part responsible for drawing many of these big Mako sharks in. But that's not happening now.
No, he's right. I mean, I've always said that. I mean, it's like if you put a load of beach anglers on a beach, in a big competition, and this is what I try to explain to people, and if you put a beach of 100 anglers on, you're going to catch a lot more different species of fish, or a lot more fish, than if you got 2 anglers on a beach. In the UK, when the sharking was in its prime in the 60s, into the 70s, before the massive decline, I'd hate to think how many boats were actually sharking on a weekend. Off Milford Haven, there's probably only 1-2 boats sharking in a day. If you go to Montauk, where they love their shark fishing, there could be 50 to 100 boats sharking. There's a lot more boats chumming an area. And he's probably hit the nail bang on the head there. There's a lot more chum going out, and it does bring in a lot more fish from the Atlantic, without a shadow of a doubt. So when you've only got 1 or 2 boats doing it, you're up against it then, aren't you, really? But if you had like 10 boats doing it, your chum trail would be, you'd be helping each other in a way to bring in better fish, better quality fish as well in from the southwest approach. So yeah, he is right. And with his experience, you couldn't really disagree with him either, could you?
What about the first authenticated UK great white? Our sea conditions are perfect for them, though maybe a bit sparse on high energy food sources such as seals. But there have been reliable, albeit unconfirmed reports, one even by a qualified marine biologist scuba diving in the Hebrides. So what are your thoughts on that score?
I like to see things with my own eyes. There's no reason they're not here. I mean, the water temperature is ideal. The water temperature has never been an issue. You hear people say, oh, global warming, that's why they're coming here. I mean, white sharks can stand very, very cold water. Same as Mako sharks can stand very cold water. They don't need warm water. So with me, it's more to believe. If I see a photo of it, I haven't got a problem. But when you think we've got mobile phones with cameras, we've got more cameras when people go shark fishing, there's more cameras on a shark boat than you can care to, and not to this day have we've ever had proof of a photo of a white shark in our waters. And the other thing what you've got to be a bit sceptical about is that the amount of commercial fishing that goes on in British waters, you would think that we get one caught in a net or something like that anyway. It's just we haven't seen it. I mean, we got the food for them. I mean, off Milford Haven, for instance, off the Smalls, we get a large part of killer whales early season, April. We'll actually stop by and feed off the Smalls on the seals there. Now, if you've got enough food from killer whales, there's not a problem with a white shark. But the other thing was, the other proof they've actually got is a seal that was taken into, I don't know if you're aware of this, a seal was taken into the seal hospital off Milford Haven. And that was actually attacked off freshwater west. Now, the reason why they won't say 100% is because where the seal was still alive, they thought he got hit by a boat. When it was checked out by a specialist, he said if you found a seal on a South African beach or Australian beach, 100% white shark attack. Because where it was found, sort of dismissed a little bit, And also, they actually made a model. It was on one of the BBC, is there white sharks in our waters? I don't know if you've seen that. And they had the model of the seal, and the triangular teeth fit the bite marks. So, there's no reason that we haven't got them. It's just, I'm a believer in, when I see it with a photo, then, I'll be 100%. But at the moment, I'm a little bit sceptical to say that they're a common fish now. I don't think they are, But, the other side of it is, there's no reason why they're not here either, is there?
Directly related to, and in many ways even looking like a great white, is the Porbeagle shark, which in angling terms grows big, fights hard, and can be found very close into shore, even in quite cold water, as far north as the Shetland Isles. It also enjoys a level of legal protection it never had before. So tell us a bit about your experiences here with these fish.
Yeah, we've been having a bit of success with the Porbeagle over the last few seasons. Well, that was the main shark really being caught. You had the odd blue, but mainly it was Porbeagles that were being caught between Nash Point and down towards Oxwich Way was an area that was known for the Porbeagle. I mean, the Welsh record came off Scarweather, which was 299. And back, I think it was in the 90s, I think it was about 91, 92, I think. But we seem to be getting quite a few of them now. I mean, I wouldn't say we get massive fish. I mean, Buse has always had the big record-breaking fish, which, was like an early season, when the females came in probably to drop their pups. But we're getting fish the £200 mark, and, you know, we have lost bigger fish, which I've known because we've had them alongside, but because they're in the water, you know, there's no way you can give a size when they come off. The numbers wise, we can do quite well on them. I mean, we've had days we've had 9, and often there's been days, you know, with blue sharks as well. We've had a busy day with 9 porbeagles and 11 blue sharks. But normally, if I was going to target them, I'd probably like to target them this time of the year now, and June is a nice time for them. You tend to find that sort of mid-season there's a blue shark sort of moving and take, whether the porbeagles move north or whatever they go, I'm not 100% where they go. But this season they've been in and out of the year, which we've missed. We've been catching them then for about 2 weeks, they go missing again, and then we've had them again sort of a week, and you've had a few in a week. So I think it's to do with the food they're chasing probably. They've moved off, and then you're lucky you've gone back out again and you've hit the similar shoals, or the chum has gone past where they've been hunting, and I think because they are being protected, like you were saying, which is a good thing now, we'll probably see more and more now, which is great, because we've actually seen a lot of very small fish this year I've never seen before, sort of 15-pound fish we've just been pubbed. So that's a good size. So we're seeing different size fish, from very small fish to mid-sized fish. So I think providing this protection can still go on, we should see more numbers of these fish off West Wales as well. And I think not just West Wales, I think Ireland's getting a lot of them. They seem to be popping up everywhere at the moment. You know, I think even off the northeast coast of Catcher, Whitby way, isn't they? They're doing well with them. So the numbers seem to be up, which is a really good thing to see.
From what you're saying here, am I right in thinking that you don't specifically target the porbeagles close inshore in the same way that the North Cornish and Devon boats do? Do you think then that it's they or you that is missing the point? Or perhaps there are different approaches to catching the same fish dependent upon where you are?
Yeah, I think West Wales, I think if we would more to target our reefs inshore, because we've got some good reefs which are like, I would say Buttes, you know, where we could do it. The biggest problem we have, you know, if I just go out for myself, I probably would try some different things. The biggest problem I got is with being a charter skip, you've got a gun to the back of your head, where it's they book your boat and they want results to catch sharks. Now, if you took a lot of the groups out, especially today with the cost of diesel, you know, it's not cheap to go fishing today. So you've got to either have a really keen, dedicated angler that's willing to try different things, which, you know, and there's no doubt off West Wales, there's some lovely reefs in where I've spoken to potting boys, and they've actually told me they've seen some good sized sharks on the inshore reefs. And I think personally, the bigger fish are going to be running on your doorstep. I think the fish which we're targeting when we're getting the blues are more what we call our mid-sized fish, up to like your 250, even 300 pound if you're lucky. But most of them are between the 150 mark, you know, from sort of 80 to 150 is your general size. But I think if we started fishing from a little bit early on some of our more of our reef grounds, I think we probably could get some better sized fish right closer in. But again, you know, it's having anglers willing to put up with the time and the effort to do that, like, you know.
When you're picking up porbeagles, where most of your sharking is done well offshore, you're just fishing for sharks generally with a single catch-all outfit and approach. So if you did decide to look for some of the bigger fish in closer, would your approach change? And if so, to what?
Yeah, I think so. You'd be sort of setting your drift up and do like a box drifting where you target the reef and then you drift over the reef. Or even if you wanted, I mean, you could hook them up like Vic Hay used to fish from an anchor. I think if you pick the right tides, you know, and then have a quick release on the anchor, because if you're targeting bigger fish, you've got to be able to be mobile as well. The tackle would have to be stepped up without a shadow of a doubt, because you're over a lot of pinnacles of rocks. I mean, you wouldn't be able to use a 30 class gear with it. I think you'd have to go up to the 50 pound class and be a bit more of a bullion technique, because you'd be in shallower water. I mean, a big fish would bosh you around. I think and then the lines going across the pinnacles would just cut through. So yeah, I think you'd have to seriously look at the gear and basically set up the same way they'd be fishing from off Bude in Cornwall, really, the same way they do there. But definitely on the offshore grounds, we haven't got to worry about pinnacles or rocks. All we need out there basically is the hull, really, of the boat you worry about more than anything else. There's nothing else to really worry about snagging your gear, really. The only thing we've had problems with in the past is, and we've overcome that, is the mackerel flying up the line when the shark's thrown it out the mouth, and we've had another shark hit the line and snap you off. And a lot of boys thought the traces were short, but it's not. What it is, it's the actual bait coming out of the other shark. He's let it go. Another shark's seen the other fish, they think it's a frenzy, and they come in and nail a mackerel. So technically, you've got two sharks on the line. And what happens, as the other shark bites onto the mackerel, that screams up the trace and he cuts you through. So we worked around that by putting a big, like a ball, like a snooker ball really, crimped on the line. That stops the mackerel. The shark can grab hold of that, and in the end, it sort of gives up the ghost. Either it tears the mackerel off, but most of the time we haven't lost so many fish. So we're working around certain things, but that's the only real problem we'd have with offshore fishing is mackerel going up the line. Where inshore fishing, I think the gear would have to be definitely stepped up if you really wanted a big Porbeagle, like, you know.
This year, which is 2011, the EU extended its protection for the Porbeagle, banning both the catching and landing of the species throughout its entire area of jurisdiction. Do you feel then that this is going to have any sort of marked effect not only on the quality of your Porbeagle fishing, but all Porbeagle fishing in the future?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely there's more Porbeagles around this season. If you listen to the angler, you know what's being caught, not just on Milford Haven, but in a lot of areas. Hamish up in north of Ireland, he's had a lot of Porbeagles this year. I'm not too sure the stats on the North Cornwall, so you probably know a bit more than me about that. But we're seeing a lot more over the last 2 seasons now. Next year, we're hoping again that these numbers will step up again, which is going to be good. I'm just hoping that, you know, just because the numbers come up, that the commercial fleet don't put enough pressure on it, that they open the floodgates again, because these fish can't stand the commercial pressure on them. You know, they only have some like 1 to 5 pups per female. They don't get sexually mature till about 10 years. So it doesn't take a rocket science. These fish can't stand being overfished. You know, they just collapse, you know. I mean, the Norwegians done it back in the 60s, didn't they? You know, they were long lining for them, and it actually collapsed in about within 10 years. There was hardly any fish there to fish for. So I'm hoping that they stick to the guns on this and they leave these fish alone, because they are a fish that's definitely will vanish. We're not going to see. You could have one good year on them commercially fishing, and it's ruined for like 10 years, you know. So we're seeing them definitely on an increase next year. Now we're all looking forward to a decent season on them, really.
That's what happened to Aberystwyth in the 1980s. But this legislation is Europe-wide and supposedly written in tablets of stone, though that hasn't necessarily always prevented fishing disasters in years gone by.
That's right, yeah. That was one of the main sharking areas in Wales. If you went back 20 years ago and you said shark fishing, that was probably our capital of shark fishing, really, was Cardigan Bay. But again, you know, skate vanished, then the Porbeagles, and it's, you were saying to me, weren't you, they haven't seen a skate up there for a long time. So it's sad that, you know, we let things get to such a state before we actually do something about it, you know.
Because I haven't fished for sharks out of Milford Haven yet, I can only base my assumptions on what I hear and read. So as someone whose summer living depends on these fish, what is your assessment of the area as a shark fishery, and is there perhaps yet more to come?
I think that the actual charter boat situation is quite dire, I think. There's not many boats working Milford, and like I've said before, the weather is partly the problem with that. It is a hard area to earn a living from, because, you know, the investment to put on a boat there, and also shark fishing off Milford Haven is a 16-hour day for the skippers. So not a lot of skippers want to do that. It is quite physical, because it's all catch and release now. A lot of these people who want to come, the anglers that come down to Milford for fishing, want their photo. So as you can imagine, most fish got to go every day. The skipper's got to wrestle them, put them on the lap. Got to be safe doing that. And when you're catching, sort of sometimes could be, you know, an average of like up to 10 fish a day normally. It is a busy day, and you put in some big fish, you know, I mean, a big blue shark, you know, at 150, sometimes they need 200 pounds. You're making sure that the angler's safe, and you're rocking it in the Atlantic seas. It is, you can't just go out there and do it, and if you have an accident out there, it's going to have to be a helicopter job. If someone got bit, it'd be a serious situation, you know. My catches, yeah, I mean, I think it's nice that an area was never really pushed. So, off the back of the boat now, I mean, a lot of people don't know me as Andrew. They think my name's Whitewater. But it's nice that I can look back probably over the years, and there was a nick in the market with fishing that I can look back and to help put Milford where it is now. And, you know, with the help of, especially like Dave Lewis, naturally he spent a lot of time with me, and we put the area on the map, I suppose, that we can look back, and when I finish, to say that, yeah, the boat's name will be remembered as a Milford boat there, you know. I mean, technically, I'm not a local man there, you know. I mean, I'm from Cardiff, so it all started for me as holidaying down there. I probably, you know, to set it all up was for holidaying down Lou, and then that was moved down to Milford Haven when I started spending more time. And there's no doubt working with the skippers from the south coast that I used to fish with the likes of Electric Blue and going on my holidays down Cornwall, has helped me with my sharking over the years. And then also reading books, you know, with the likes of, there's no doubt every book of sharking I've probably picked up over the years, Thrustnells, I've read Pullen's books, and all people have caught lots of sharks, and it all help you. You sort of take in all their ideas and then you make your own, and you take bits and pieces of everything. So, yeah, I think with fishing, you're learning every day. So when I look back now, I can honestly say, yeah, we probably have put it on the map there, and it's a nice situation to have,
Sharking, obviously, is pretty much a summer pursuit, though I know over on the North Cornish coast there are spots almost up to the shore, where some of the very biggest female porbeagles move in for a couple of weeks during March and April just to drop their pups. So what is the extent of your season?
Right, well, our season starts for June. Now, I like June, for instance, because we got a good chance of seeing the porbeagles. Not so many blues, but as you were saying there, that we solely, maybe looking for blue sharks. We are actually now been putting a jigsaw together, because the thing with Milford Haven, it has been one big jigsaw putting it together. Over the years, you could pick up a book, especially like for shark fishing book, and bar Cardigan Bay and then say the South Coast, there was nothing really. It was like a big void for the area for us to put together. So it's been my own doing really of finding out when I can actually target the porbeagle. When do the porbeagles run? When do the blue sharks run? So over the years now, it's putting it together that we know early season's a good chance where, and a lot of my anglers now are booking my boat early season for the porbeagle shark than they are for blue shark. So I always say to them, we'll look at June, and then we'll look at the back end of the year, September into October, for another run on the porbeagles. The only drawback to October, you still got quite a few blue sharks around. I mean, it's not a bad thing because some of the biggest fish are an October fish. But when you're targeting porbeagles in June, when you get a run, 90% of the time it's going to be a porbeagle because the water's still pretty cold. The blues haven't really moved into the areas. You might get a big one with the colder water, but you don't get lots of blue sharks that early. And then on the October side of things, you still got a lot of blues, but you have got your chance of, about just 2 weeks ago, we had 7 porbeagles up to 180 pound in weight. We had DEFRA, the fish tagging wanted to put some tags on, and it was funny, I was explaining to him that I'm waiting for him to come back, and we're waiting for the porbeagle to show again, and it's like funny, he said, you got to switch you. I said, no, we're due for him to come back, and it was funny, after a week of the phone call, we were back at sea once the weather allowed, and we had like the switch went, we had 7 porbeagles. And it's nice that you can actually put your own pattern together, and it's like a jigsaw that goes together, so you really know now that probably June and October is a good time for our porbeagle sharks off West Wales.
And when you're not shark fishing over the summer months, what happens then?
Boat then is, it will be sailed back to Cardiff area, and we work the Bristol Channel for the cod season, which is through the winter. This season now we're going to start, especially around March through to May, we're going to be running more on the smoothhounds, because the Bristol Channel probably got some of the best smoothhound fishing in the UK. We had a good year on it last year, so a lot of the anglers now like to have that as a warm-up species before they actually move on to the shark, which is a good little inshore fish to have a bit of fun with,
So where are you based at for that?
That will be running out of Cardiff, Penarth Marina, and it's 15 miles down the coast down towards Aberthorpe Power Station. We fish very close in there, and using crab, you can get some starry smoothhounds and common hounds. We've had them into the 20 pounds, which is great fishing for those, great size fish for those fish.
Actually, another of the interviews I did earlier this year was with fishery researcher Dr. Ed Farrell, explaining how there is no difference between the supposed starry and common smoothhounds. It's official, they're both one and the same species.
I know you're going to come with that, because actually someone came out to, not so much on my boat, but then they were taking samples off them, and they actually said that there's no difference between the fish, isn't it? It's amazing. They call the starries and the common, because you look and they do look like 2 different types of fish. One looks more like a brown colour, and then you got your normal starry, But yeah, you're right. It was done, I'm not sure, about 3 or 4 years ago. They were saying it's the same type of breed of fish. So yeah, it's something new there, isn't it?
Yeah, within species variation.
Yeah. You probably just upset a load of people now because they all thought, the 2 different species of fish, which. It's amazing because they do look totally different, don't they? You see them, the one is completely, looks browny colour, and the other one's got the old starries on this. Will that be made more common now?
The record fish committees have all been sent copies of Ed's interview. The Welsh currently are looking into the one species solution. Scotland, on the other hand, doesn't have any urgency in all of this because they only list the starry smoothhound, and the Brits, as ever, are still dragging their feet.
So it would actually keep the same name, would it? Would it be a starry, or would it have to make out a totally different name for the fish, you know?
The Irish just call them all smoothhounds, which sounds like a good solution to me. But it doesn't matter really, so long as the science is right.
Because it's like, no, they're changing the name of the dogfish, isn't it? So people, was it cat shark, is it?
Yeah, but I'll still curse and call them all dogs. And with the cod, what's the timing in terms of seasonality and choice of tides?
I like the smaller tides really, because we can get different, because naturally with the Bristol Channel, we tended to head up towards Severn Bridge, so we got very, very fierce tides up there. We can have nothing, 12 metre tides. So with the smaller tides, you can actually fish the English sides over towards Clevedon, or come back onto the Newport side. So you've got more venues to fish, which I prefer the smaller tides. Where on the bigger tides, we tend to be up towards Newport, using the sandbanks up there to take deflection off the main tide, the fierce tide, so we can tuck in there. So any time from end of November to probably February is a good time for our cod.
And to wind things up, what about a bit of unashamed self-promotion? Things like websites, contact details and the like.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at the website I run is whitewatercharters.co.uk. There's some video on there. We try to make it quite informative. We try and put a bit of shark in, tell the details of shark, not just to show you pictures, but a little bit of information about sharks, which gives people who haven't got a clue or don't know how to tackle them with tackle needed. And we try and do our best so people can understand it before they need to phone up. And I mean, some people feel a bit foolish asking me simple questions, but at the end of the day, if you've never done it before, I'll have a chat with anyone, regarding fishing. I quite enjoy it. It's nice to see new people getting involved in it as well.
Even before chatting with you, I have to say that I was impressed with the setup and more especially the quality of the fishing out from Milford Haven. Having now spent some time talking through the subject, the sharking here sounds to me to be as good as it gets anywhere currently in British waters. The size as well as the numbers for the blues is particularly impressive, on top of which there is a very good chance of the Porbeagles too, which for me is the icing on an already very tasty cake. My thanks then to Andrew Allsop for taking the time to explore the potential of Milford Haven and its sharks with us here today.